Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into how scientists tweak cells to crank out those valuable compounds, especially important for pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, agriculture, a lot of industries.
Right, right. So think of this deep dive as your crash course on how we control these tiny factories, microbial and plant cells.
Exactly.
We've got info here on everything from the basic cell food, macronutrients,
Different
micronutrients,
building blocks.
to the more specific things like nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon sources,
Mm,
even things like growth factors, vitamins, plant hormones, the whole 9 yards.
yeah, it's all about optimizing the environment.
Our mission today,
To give you
to give you the key takeaway,
the hummo.
those aha moments without getting too bogged down in the technical stuff.
Right.
So first off, nutrient composition, what are the essentials?
So at the very basic level, cells need those macronutrients,
Okay.
like nitrogen, phosphorus,
In larger amounts.
in larger amounts. It's for building their structures, generating energy, all that good stuff.
Like the cell's building blocks.
Exactly. Then you've got the micronutrients, your iron, zinc, all those. They act as enzyme helpers, so they're not needed in huge amounts, but still crucial.
Kind of like the nuts and bolts of the operation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Okay.
all about balance, right?
Yeah.
Too much of any nutrient
Uh-huh.
or too little can really mess things up,
Really throw a wrench in the works.
for sure.
For sure. Let's talk about nitrogen. It seems like how much nitrogen you give, what type of nitrogen can really change what the cell is doing.
Absolutely. High nitrogen often pushes growth, so you get more cells.
Okay.
But when scientists want those secondary metabolites, things like alkaloids or phenolics,
Which we use in a lot of different industries.
yeah, pharmaceuticals being a big one, yeah.
Pharmaceuticals, uh-huh.
They'll actually sometimes reduce the nitrogen.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of it like, a plant under stress. When resources are limited, it might invest more in making those defensive compounds,
I see.
which are often these secondary metabolites.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah,
So it's not just about giving the cell as much as it can take. Sometimes limiting things
sometimes limiting is
Yeah.
more effective,
is more effective.
especially when it comes to those, more specialized compounds.
And kind of a similar story with phosphorus. I know it's essential for energy, for the DNA, RNA.
Yeah, it's all about the nucleic acids, energy transfer, all the vital stuff.
But you're saying limiting it can actually increase the production of some things, like antibiotics.
Right. Because high phosphate can kind of keep the cell focused on that primary metabolism,
Okay.
keeping the lights on, basically.
Hmm.
But then lowering it can sometimes trigger the pathways for secondary metabolism. And that's when you start seeing those valuable compounds.
Interesting. So let's talk about carbon. We're talking sugars here, basically.
The main energy source.
How does that play into this whole thing?
So different sugars can affect how fast those cells grow.
Okay.
They can even direct the cell down different metabolic pathways.
Hmm.
However, the thing is, if there's too much sugar, a cell might just use that and ignore other pathways,
Interesting.
including the ones that make, the things we want.
The valuable compounds.
Exactly.
It's like if you only ate cake all day, you wouldn't really be getting your nutrients.
That's a good way to put it. And that's what scientists call catabolite repression.
Okay.
So what they do is they carefully control the sugar levels, often using a technique called fed batch.
So it's like a carefully balanced diet for these cells.
Absolutely.
And the carbon to nitrogen ratio, the CN ratio, seems to be really important.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect all these things together, the CN ratio is kind of like a switch. It determines whether the cell is focused on just multiplying or whether it's going to start making those specialized secondary metabolites.
Like the switch between grow and produce.
Precisely. And a higher carbon ratio often favors secondary metabolism.
Now let's move on to those growth factors.
Yeah.
These are kind of like the extra signals the cells are getting, right? Like vitamins, for example.
Right. They're like the essential support crew.
Okay.
Vitamins often act as coenzymes.
So they're helping out all those important reactions in the cell?
Yeah.
What about amino acids? They're not just for building proteins, are they?
No, they're not. They have a dual role. They're crucial for building proteins, obviously, but they can also be the starting material for some secondary metabolites
Okay.
or even act as signals within the cell.
Interesting. Now, for plant cell culture specifically, there's those plant growth regulators, or PGRs.
Right. Now, these are really interesting. So to initiate and maintain plant cell cultures, you often need hormones like auxins and cytokinins.
Okay.
But what's interesting is hairy root cultures, which are these modified plant roots, known for growing really fast and producing secondary metabolites, they don't usually need those.
So they're sort of self-sufficient in that way.
Exactly.
And for those that do need the PGRs, it's not just a question of are they there or not, it's the specific types and how much of each one you have, right?
Absolutely. The exact mix of those PGRs, your 2,4-D, your BAP,
Mm-hmm.
can really influence what kind of cells develop and how much of those secondary metabolites they make.
So it's like fine-tuning the recipe
Exactly.
to get the specific compounds that you want.
It's all about precision.
So to sum up, it sounds like manipulating the environment, the food, the signals.
All of it.
It's a powerful technique for biotechnology to create all sorts of valuable compounds.
Absolutely.
Ah.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The way scientists carefully adjust the environment for these cells,
Mm-hmm.
balancing the nutrients, the growth factors. It's kind of like how we try to optimize our own diet.
For health and performance.
Exactly. And what really stands out is that in both cases, it's that balance of specific components that can make all the difference. It really makes you think about the fundamental principles of how we influence biological systems, whether it's a cell in the lab or our own bodies.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Thank you. It was great to be here.